Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Representatives from Florida's Marion County Sheriff's Office say that a suspect's hopes of escape quite literally went up in smoke last week when he attempted to flee the scene of an alleged domestic incident, only for his getaway vehicle to burst into flames mid-chase. The whole thing started a little after 1:30 a.m. on September 20th, when Marion County deputies were called about a domestic dispute at a Murphy gas station just outside the city of Ocala. When officers arrived, they found one of the people involved, 39-year-old Derek Rouse. He was in a gold Chevy Trailblazer behind the gas station, though apparently he wasn't planning on sticking around. When deputies tried to make a traffic stop, Rouse allegedly sped off. For the next little while, he tried to get away, all the while blowing through stop signs and just generally engaging in dangerous driving. In the end, though, it was the 39-year-old's own vehicle that gave him up. In dashcam footage released by the Sheriff's Department this week, you can clearly see smoke pouring from the SUV part of the way into the chase. A short time later, fire can be seen coming from the interior, moments before Rouse pulls over and jumps out onto the ground on his stomach in surrender. The 39-year-old was arrested at the scene and is now charged with operating a motor vehicle without a valid license and resisting a police officer while fleeing. In a social media post following the incident, the Sheriff's Department wrote in part, quote, "Lesson of the day, stop means stop. Oh, and running from law enforcement, that's never a good idea." It's still unclear exactly why Rouse's vehicle burst into flames, though in the same post, authorities did mention that he had pulled some, quote, questionable driving maneuvers during the chase. Representatives from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division say that 2 police officers are injured this week and a police canine is dead, following 2 shooting incidents with the same suspect, which culminated in a deadly standoff. The incident began at around 11 p.m. on September 19th, when an officer in the town of McBee attempted to perform a traffic stop on a 2013 Toyota Tacoma. During that routine stop, the driver of the vehicle, later identified as 27-year-old Alston Maudlin, allegedly pulled out a gun and shot the officer before fleeing the scene. The following morning, a statewide alert was put out for Maudlin and his vehicle. The case picked up roughly 2 hours later when the Tacoma was tracked to a rural area in Lee County, about 30 miles away from the initial crime scene. However, when police responded to the scene, they didn't realize they were walking into an ambush. As officers attempted to move in on his vehicle, Maudlin allegedly began shooting at them from somewhere off the road. The 27-year-old fired dozens of rounds, at least one of which injured another deputy. However, the truly heartbreaking loss came when Maudlin reportedly began firing at a patrol car, causing the vehicle to catch fire. A canine officer named Miko was in the back of the car when it went up in flames. However, her fellow officers were unable to rescue her due to the ongoing ambush attack. By the time they were able to safely reach the vehicle, sadly, it was too late. Officer Mika had died in the fire. The shootout with Maudlin reportedly continued for some time before he eventually ran off into a nearby cornfield. It was here that he was killed, though it's currently unclear if police fired the fatal shot or whether he turned his weapon on himself. Representatives from the Lee County Sheriff's Office say that they are devastated by the loss of their canine officer. In a statement, Sheriff Daniel Simon said in part, quote, "We are a smaller agency and we have to wear several different hats here. We are greatly saddened by the loss of Canine Mika, who was as much a member of our team as my chief deputy who was injured. So far, no updates have been given on the condition of the 2 officers who were injured. Authorities say that they are still investigating the case and are working to figure out the motive behind the awful crime." Authorities in San Antonio, Texas say that they have made an arrest in connection with an alleged murder case this week after the body of an avid hiker was found under suspicious circumstances a day after she was reported missing. The whole thing began on the morning of September 22nd when 63-year-old Stacy Dramiga headed out for her usual walk along the Greenway trails. According to those who knew her, she was very familiar with the area and often walked alone. However, at around 11 p.m. that same day, police received a call from Stacy's husband. He explained that he couldn't get in contact with her and that she had never returned home. A search was launched, leading to the discovery of Stacy's car, which was found still locked near Covington Park. A family iPad was used to locate the 63-year-old's phone, leading them to a completely different search area about 3 miles away in DeFost Park. It was here, the following morning, that everyone's worst fears would be confirmed. Stacy's body was found about 30 yards off of the paved trail on the Salado Creek Greenway inside of the park. After conducting an investigation, it was determined that Stacy had died from blunt force and penetrating trauma to the head. The injuries were apparently not consistent with a fall or some kind of accident. Rather, authorities say they believe she was deliberately forced off the trail and that her death was a homicide. On the same day that Stacy was found, police located a man in the same general area as the remains, later identified as 37-year-old Marco Flores. When officers spoke to Flores, he allegedly knew details about what had happened to Stacy that had not been released to the public. Upon being informed that he was being brought in for questioning, the 37-year-old reportedly took off running and tried to escape. He was caught and now remains in custody. At the time of this recording, Flores has only been charged with evading arrest and detention. Police say that they are still investigating the murder and have not released any further details about the crime or any possible connection between Stacy and Flores. Bexar County Police are now asking for any members of the public who may have information about the case or who saw Stacy walking on the day of her disappearance to please come forward. Representatives from the LAPD say that one person is dead this week following a terrifying and dramatic bus hijacking that ended in a standoff with a department SWAT team. The situation began at around 12:45 a.m. on September 25th, when police received a flood of 911 calls about an incident aboard a Los Angeles MTA bus. Witnesses stated that they had seen a public transit bus driving with an emergency message flashing on its exterior display, alerting them to call for help. The message in question was part of the vehicle's silent alarm system and had been activated by the driver. Moments earlier, a passenger had boarded near South Figueroa Street and Manchester Avenue. The man, later identified as 51-year-old Lamont Campbell, had gotten into an argument with the driver and had allegedly pulled out a gun. When police caught up with the bus, it had only traveled a short distance and was stopped near Figueroa and 117th Streets. However, when officers attempted to approach the vehicle and communicate with those inside, the bus sped off. Though most of those on board had managed to escape at the time of the initial incident, authorities could see that Campbell had 3 hostages. 2 were passengers, while the other was the driver, who was behind the wheel and was reportedly being ordered around by Campbell at gunpoint. A chase began after the bus fled the scene, one which only came to an end over an hour later. The vehicle was disabled by police using spike strips near Alameda and 6th Streets, right in the heart of the city. Even at this point, Campbell refused to surrender and, according to local media sources, barricaded himself inside with the hostages. Finally, with the help of flashbangs, the SWAT team was able to enter the bus and place Campbell under arrest. While the bus driver and one of the passengers being held hostage managed to escape relatively unharmed. Sadly, that wasn't the case for the final victim. The other passenger, 48-year-old Anthony Rivera, had been shot multiple times. He was rushed to a hospital, but later died from his injuries. Anthony's grieving family members say that they were told by investigators who had spoken to witnesses that Anthony was shot while trying to defuse the situation. During the argument between Campbell and the bus driver, he reportedly offered up his own belongings, assuming that the 51-year-old was just trying to rob them. That's when Campbell allegedly turned and shot him. Anthony's loved ones say that he was a former member of the California National Guard and that he wasn't the kind of person to sit around if he thought people were in danger. He was working as a parking lot attendant at Dodger Stadium and had just been trying to get home at the time of the incident. The family is now calling for more to be done to ensure the safety of innocent people like Anthony who rely on public transit in their daily lives. At the time of this recording, Campbell remains in custody on suspicion of murder. No further information has been released about the alleged motive behind the crime. Authorities in Madison, Wisconsin say that they arrested a shameless thief with quite the healthy appetite this week, one who allegedly broke into a woman's home and cooked herself a nice meal and even tried to pretend she was supposed to be there. The whole thing started at around 10:30 p.m. on September 24th, when the female victim, who has not been identified by name, arrived home to find that all of her lights were on. This was pretty strange since she had been gone the whole day and she didn't remember leaving anything running. She discovered what was going on after she investigated further and found that a stranger had made herself very comfortable inside. Not only was she pretty relaxed, she had cooked herself an entire pasta and shrimp dinner. The victim understandably called police, who arrived at the scene about 10 minutes later. That's when things got even weirder. After officers called out to the suspect, later identified as Joanna Kelly Lee, she greeted them at the door. However, she tried to claim that there was no issue. She stated that she had met the female victim at a coffee shop earlier that day and that she had given her the keys to her home. The victim denied this, saying that she never gave Lee permission to do anything, let alone come inside and eat her food. Lee was arrested, but it wasn't until later that authorities filled in the final details. Apparently, Lee had sifted through the victim's mail after breaking in so that she knew her first name and some other details about her. Lee has now been charged with burglary and criminal trespass and remains in custody at the Dane County Jail. Newly released court documents have shed light on a truly disturbing crime this week after an Alabama man was accused of trying to hire a hitman to kill his wife as well as their 6 adult children. According to an affidavit that was unsealed this week, the plot centered around an acrimonious divorce between the suspect, 63-year-old Muhammad A.H. Muhammad, and his wife, identified only by the initials S.A. That divorce has apparently been ongoing for some time now, during which Muhammad's behavior has reportedly grown increasingly unhinged and violent. The document lays out several accusations from S.A., who says that she is scared of her estranged husband. She claims that over the past few years he has repeatedly threatened, assaulted, stalked, and harassed her and their 6 children. In listed statements, she says in part, quote, "He always threatens me and my children with violence. He has put his hands on my kids and sent them to the emergency room. He has put a gun and knife against my kids' heads and throats. He has shot guns at us." Chillingly, this only appears to be the tip of the iceberg, though. According to the affidavit, Muhammad has been arrested numerous times in connection with escalating incidents against his family members. The incidents have included everything from assaults to putting tracking devices on his wife and kids' vehicles to allegedly setting several of their vehicles on fire. One of these alleged arsons reportedly took place in December of 2023 after S.A. received a call from someone on Muhammad's behalf trying to convince her to reconcile their marriage. When she refused, hours later, one of their daughter's cars was found burned in a, quote, "suspicious fire." Muhammad was arrested 3 days later on a stalking charge. During the subsequent proceedings in court, audio was played where a witness had told him that he would go to hell if he hurt his family. He responded, quote, "No, God will reward me." Of course, all of this pales in comparison to the allegations revealed this week. Beginning earlier this year, Muhammad reportedly began repeatedly reaching out to an unidentified witness to find him someone to kill his family. As stated by the affidavit, he told the witness that he, quote, "felt his pride and self-dignity had been destroyed throughout the falling out with his family over the last few years," saying that he would, quote, "die for self-dignity and die for his pride." The witness agreed to help Muhammad, though unbeknownst to him, immediately began working with the FBI. That's when the 63-year-old was put in contact with an undercover agent posing as a hitman. Based on the court documents, it appears that Muhammad wasn't shy about his motivations or desires. He told the agent that he would pay him $20,000 to kill his wife, as well as an additional $5,000 for each one of his children. While discussing the details in recently recorded secret conversations, the 63-year-old said in part, quote, "6 kids and the mom. You pick and choose who you're going to take out and get paid." When the undercover agent said that he would need at least $2,000 as a down payment, Muhammad replied, quote, "Start with at least one. Start with one. Take your time. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5. I don't give a f***. Just start with one." He went on to refer to his children as trash and cockroaches. After giving the undercover agent a down payment of $550 for the killings, Muhammad was arrested on September 23rd. He has now been charged with use of interstate commerce facilities in the commission of a murder for hire. Authorities in Santa Barbara County, California, say that they are investigating the aftermath of a terrifying incident this week after a man allegedly detonated a homemade explosive device inside of a courthouse, injuring several people. The situation took place on the morning of September 25th at the Santa Barbara County Superior Court in the city of Santa Maria. It began shortly before 9 a.m. when the suspect, later identified as 20-year-old Nathaniel James McGuire, went inside the courthouse, threw a backpack into the middle of the lobby, and yelled, quote, "Liberty or death." He then allegedly detonated a bomb inside of the bag as he ran outside. Thankfully, no one was killed as a result of the blast. At least 5 people were wounded and were treated for burns and other injuries at a local hospital afterwards, though it appears that the situation could have turned out much worse. McGuire was taken down by a court security officer, a sheriff's deputy, and multiple other law enforcement personnel as he was in the parking lot attempting to get into a red sedan. Inside, investigators reportedly found a shotgun, a rifle, ammunition, another bomb, and several Molotov cocktails. The 20-year-old was also wearing body armor under his jacket, and according to authorities, later admitted he wasn't trying to flee the scene when he was captured. Instead, he had allegedly returned to his vehicle to get more weapons to try and kill deputies and a judge inside the courthouse. As for McGuire's motive, police say that it's believed it was related to a grievance over a prior arrest. That arrest reportedly took place back in July when the 20-year-old was found in possession of a loaded and concealed revolver that was not registered to him. Apparently, McGuire was due to appear in court in connection with the case the day of the bombing, and as he was being taken away, began yelling about how the, quote, "government had taken his guns and that everyone needed to fight, rise up, and rebel." McGuire is now facing charges including maliciously damaging a building by means of an explosive device. If convicted, he could be looking at up to 40 years in federal prison. Authorities in Prince William County, Virginia say that the prime suspect in a more than 14-year-old cold case murder is successfully in custody after he was busted last week during a routine traffic stop in Florida. The stop took place on September 17th when Flagler County deputies reportedly witnessed a pickup truck blow through a red light on Old Kings Road. When they pulled over the driver, later identified as 43-year-old Timothy Sean Hickerson, they told him that he wouldn't just be getting a ticket. Body cam footage, which partially captured the interaction, shows Hickerson looking shocked as he is informed that he is also being arrested on outstanding warrants for burglary and second-degree murder. Those 2 charges are in connection with the more than 14-year-old cold case killing of 23-year-old Shane Donahue. Shane was last seen all the way back on March 22, 2010, when he was leaving his parents' house in the community of Nokesville, Virginia. He was supposed to be on his way to his own home nearby. However, he never arrived. He was reported missing 2 days later after no one was able to get in contact with him. While Shane's body has never been found, he has long since been presumed dead by police. The case was investigated back when it initially happened, though it soon went cold. It wasn't until spring of this year, when a new team of investigators began re-examining the case, that a breakthrough was finally made. That breakthrough reportedly pointed to Timothy Hickerson. While the exact details and evidence that police uncovered has not been released, authorities say that at the time of Shane's disappearance, Hickerson was an acquaintance of his. Shane had just come into a sizable amount of money for a construction job that he had done, and it's alleged that Hickerson was involved in a burglary at his home just a few days before he vanished. Not only that, but witnesses allegedly saw Hickerson and Shane together when he left his parents' house on March 22, 2010. Hickerson, who was 28 at the time, was later convicted of 2 burglaries at Northern Virginia gun stores and served 4 years in federal prison. He later moved to Florida, where he was arrested this week. At the time of this recording, Hickerson remains in custody on that murder and burglary warrant, but is attempting to fight his extradition to Virginia. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.